I was becoming a lot more spiritual, and I found solace in doing a lot of different healing modalities on myself. And I tried practically everything under the sun. I did Reiki, meditations, self-reflection, shadow work, just to name a few things.
Welcome to the Spirit Experience Podcast, where we discuss spiritual practices for healing and happiness. I'm your host, Schall, a spiritual life coach with a focus on transforming grief into a life of purpose. Join us each Monday for enlightening conversations with spiritual teachers across a variety of practices and modality. Jacqueline S. from BeyondMagick joins me on this week's episode of the Spirit Experience Podcast. Jacqueline is a spiritual healer, Reiki Master, tarot reader, and spiritual ascension coach who's been on her spiritual path for 15 years. A profound transformation in 2023, known as the Dark Night of the Soul, awakened her abilities to receive spiritual downloads and channel light language. Jacqueline, welcome to the Spirit Experience Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. It's really exciting to be here.
I love to start off with a personal experience. Could you share something like that where you were transformed in some way or healed in some way through a spiritual experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have always been a very spiritual person, as I've been on my spiritual path for like 15 years now. But it really wasn't until about 2023 when, after I did some major emotional, spiritual, and karmic healing, my abilities were fully awakened and I realized my soul's true purpose. So back in 2023, I had underwent a dark night of the soul. And if anyone listening isn't sure what that is, it's a period of immense pain that cuts so deep that the ego part of you dies. And this causes rapid spiritual growth and expansion within you. And because it's such a shock to your soul, it can and usually does unlock spiritual abilities within you, or opens your eyes to your soul's true purpose, which is essentially the reason behind your journey on Earth. So, my dark night of the soul happened after a series of events. I had left a 9-year relationship with my abusive ex-fiance who I had lived with, and it ended very badly between us. And obviously, it was a buildup of things that led to this point from my perspective, but perhaps he saw things differently, which might explain his reaction to the situation. I feared for my life the night when I finally had the courage to say goodbye, and I honestly hoped that things would end peacefully, but they didn't. And this might be triggering for some, so I'll try to keep it brief. So, long story short, the building management of our condo sent a noise complaint to our unit. And in hindsight, I really should have called the police. I'm not even sure how I made it out physically safe that night, but I didn't leave completely unscathed. I was clinically diagnosed with PTSD shortly following this event, and I should have healed first, but I soon fell for another man who claimed he could save me, and I'll admit this was foolish of me because I was not in a good position. I was still vulnerable, and it was easy for someone to take advantage of me. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. That was a very short-lived connection, and he also had traumas that he tried very hard to hide, but he brought them into the relationship. And the kind of abuse that I had endured in the relationship with my ex-fiance was not only mirrored like a pattern or a karmic imprint in this one, but it was also all emphasized this time around. And I think looking back, the hardest part about this was the love bombing that I got at the start, which quickly turned into disapproval when I didn't act the way he wanted me to. I personally didn't see it as love bombing at the time. I saw it as the validation and approval that I didn't get in my previous relationship. But soon I was discarded as quickly as I was picked up, and this was another massive hit to my self-esteem and self-perceived worth. I was in such a slump that it honestly helped to tell myself that this was a divinely orchestrated intervention, forcing me to finally heal from my past before I try to seek another connection, lest it be toxic and unhealthy again.
From that point, what were your first steps? What did you do to start that healing process?
So I ended up going to therapy for this, which honestly, I really recommend doing no matter who you are or what you're going through, by the way. So I was going to therapy for this, and my therapist, bless her, what a lovely lady. She was Buddhist at the time, and while she really helped me get through the traumas, depression, and PTSD of it all, I think what was really the game changer for me was that at the same time, I was doing a lot of my own healings on myself. I was becoming a lot more spiritual, and I found solace in doing a lot of different healing modalities on myself. And I tried practically everything under the sun. I did Reiki, meditations, self-reflection, shadow work, just to name a few things. And I would do my own healings during the week. And then I'd go to my session and I'd tell her how I had been doing. And she'd be like, wow, that's so amazing. That's wonderful. And it was really helpful to have someone spiritual supporting me because she understood some of my beliefs and the things I do, even though most people see it as a bit woo-woo and out there. Anyway, I did a lot of learning and I practiced using my spiritual gifts whenever I could. Um, it had always been my calling to help and heal others. So I also became a Reiki Master during this time. And I also did a lot of tarot readings and I channeled messages during these tarot readings for family, friends, and neighbors. And I still remember there was this one time I did a reading for my sister's neighbor's son regarding a situation at work that he wasn't even aware of. And I wasn't quite sure what the message I was receiving even meant, but all I knew was that it was going to be big and it was going to be a shocker, and he was going to lose his very first part-time job over it. Next thing I know, not even a month later, I get a call from his mom saying her son lost his job. It turns out his manager was caught stealing, and everyone was fired due to association with the manager since he had hired all of them. So it was definitely a shock. No one knew what was going on behind the scenes, and no one even suspected anything at the time. So it was really things like this that opened my eyes to the gifts I was unlocking as a result of healing myself. And eventually, I had reached a point where at the end of one of my therapy sessions, my therapist was like, you know what? I have nothing left to teach you or help you from. Like, you've already done so much work yourself. So it was almost kind of like a graduation, like, oh my gosh, yay, I'm healed. I don't need to go back to my sessions anymore. And I still remember, like, right before she said this to me, I had told her about one of my spiritual downloads that I got, which I had fully embodied at this point. And she mentioned it's a foundation in Buddhist psychology, which I wasn't familiar with back then. So I thought that was really interesting that it had some sort of connection to Buddhism. Like, where did that come from? Sometimes I used to gaslight myself into thinking like I had made some of these spiritual downloads up, but this one just did not make sense. Like, it's not something I could make up myself because I didn't even know that it was a thing. So based on what I had told her, she mentioned it sounded like I reached a point of nirvana, which is what it's called when you find peace and break free from samsara, which is the cycle of continuously undergoing suffering. So I'm sure some people might be curious about what my spiritual download was, and I am going to get to that in a bit, but I did want to preface with this first. When I receive a spiritual download, sometimes it comes to me as pure knowledge and isn't readily translatable into any human language. So some of the meanings occasionally get lost in translation when I try to write them down in my spiritual journals. I do try to like word them and reword them so they make sense and retain as much value of the knowledge as possible, but it doesn't always work out that way. So anyway, my spiritual download was that we exist on Earth solely for spiritual ascension. Everything that we experience along the journey is either a distraction, which can help us learn from our life lessons, or it's a side quest that opens us up in a positive way to attract abundance and assist in ascension. If something bad happens, just remember that feelings and emotions are temporary, and anything that is temporary is not you. They will pass. They will help us grow and learn our life lessons. But we also need to not act on these feelings or identify as them, as we can control our actions even if we cannot control how we feel. Everything happens for a reason, and coincidences do not exist. This is the universe's way of showing us signs that we're on the right path. And this knowledge really helped me realize that there's a bigger picture to the negative events that I went through. It was kind of like a light bulb moment for me because I realized that this was one of my life lessons. I had to learn how to save myself and not wait for some Prince Charming to save me and whisk me out of my castle prison. And believe me, there is no one who works harder than a woman who realizes that the only person who can and actually will save her is herself.
Jacqueline, that's beautiful. Everything that you just said in that download, I've experienced all of that since losing my son and going on this spiritual journey myself. And I think one of the things that I want to share with people is how accessible spirituality is. You don't have to meditate all day long or chant all day. There's so much that you can do in your everyday life as you go about your day.
So I definitely recommend healing is the most important thing that someone can do in order to unlock spirituality. Like I really put an emphasis on healing and self-love because when you're not fully healed, you're functioning from a place of ego, and the ego is not the awakened self. The ego is in survival mode. It exists to protect yourself, and it's the lowest vibrational frequency. Unfortunately, that means that you won't be able to unlock and develop your spiritual gifts if you're in your ego. Spiritual growth doesn't happen when you're in the place of ego. It happens when you're vibrating at the highest frequency, which is pure, authentic love. And you don't just feel love. It's not like a feeling. It's you really embody it. You are love, and you can love and hold space for everyone, including yourself. So healing and self-love, they're both the most important things when it comes to spiritual development. Like I always say, you can buy all the tarot cards you want, get all the readings and courses you want, but you will never unlock your true spiritual gifts if you don't heal yourself first. It all comes down to that. So when it comes to healings, I personally work with several different modalities as I find there's no like one size fits all. Everyone is dealing with something different, and everyone experiences healing at their own pace and in their own way. And as an intuitive person, I really get a sense for what feels right in the moment, and that tells me what modality to use for myself. And I use modalities that are complementary to each other. They all have their own specific purpose. So for example, as a Reiki master, I can channel Reiki, and this type of energy healing can be used for almost anything. I typically use it to ease spiritual or emotional pain, soothe the soul, integrate healings, open myself or clients up to positive opportunities. It helps with unblocking obstacles and all those things. And Reiki is also very gentle, so it's a very versatile, and this is like one of the major ones that I use when it comes to healing and wanting something that helps on a deeper level. But occasionally, like I may feel called in to bring other modalities like light language. Sometimes I may feel like using light language, and this usually happens if I'm channeling Reiki. I'll feel a surge of energy move through me, and I'll be called to enter a trance and use light language to further remove blockages or like raise my own frequencies or a client's frequencies. And this form of healing is similar to Reiki in the way that they can both be used remotely, and they also both use me as a conduit for the energies. But light language codes are frequencies that come from higher dimensions, and it's also a lot more visual and vocal than Reiki, so it kind of looks like an art. But on the receiving end, there's like nothing you need to do other than to be open to receiving the healing energies. So there are a lot of Reiki practitioners and light language practitioners on public spaces such as YouTube and TikTok. If you aren't familiar with light language yourself, or you don't practice the light language or Reiki, you can definitely find a practitioner on there and watch their videos, because they are remote. Uh, they are remote modalities, and they transcend time. So they work in the past, present, and future. So they're all very versatile. Um, and as long as you heal, I think that is the most important thing. I also believe strongly in doing shadow work, really journaling. If you have like a spiritual journal or somewhere where you can write notes, that actually helped me a lot to understand and receive spiritual downloads and messages from spirit. So I never used to be able to like receive messages. However, after I started journaling a lot, I began to receive them more frequently, and this has been able to guide me into knowing what it is that I need to heal. And also, it gives me some messages that give me light bulb moments like the one that I mentioned before.
I love that you mentioned that this type of work is remote work. And one of the reasons for that is after my son transitioned back to spirit, I had to find him. I had to communicate with him. And at the time, I didn't understand I could be on the phone with a psychic medium and get a reading. Spirit is everywhere, and so that energy is everywhere. And then I want to talk more about that because people have this fear. You got to be in the same room, got to be touching, connecting, seeing. And that's not true when we're talking about energy, spirit, and that kind of work. Could you go a little bit deeper about the how this works remotely?
Absolutely. So I personally believe that we are all one single consciousness. So we're all intertwined. There are a lot of articles about this, metaphysical articles about this, but the way that I see it is that we are all intertwined. We are all based on, I guess, the same light codes. So we stem from the same universe, the same consciousness, and because of that, we're all intertwined. So there's actually this strong belief that I've come to learn, where your external reality actually plays out based on what your internal dialogue is. And this can also tie into how the remote modalities work. So for example, if you say in your internal dialogue that I'll never be good enough for like other people, and they'll always treat me like dirt and all that, then that's going to show up in your external reality, because you're not only believing it yourself, but you're actually feeding into that karmic imprint. You're actually kind of bringing that in. And I think this is just a very important thing to note, because when it comes to healing modalities that are remote like this, they also tie into that internal dialogue. Like if you believe that Reiki will help, it actually helps a lot better when you have an open mind to it, than if you were to say like, oh, I don't believe in Reiki, and like this isn't going to work for me. Like I don't, like it closes your mind off, And it makes it a lot harder for the practitioner to connect with you because, like I said before, we are all interconnected, and it's very easy to find that point from practitioner to client.
How do you help them bridge that understanding where they understand that they're an autonomous unit as a human being, but that they are also something else because we are spirit?
That's a very good question. I guess for a lot of people, it's hard to really understand because even though we are our own individual people, we do have that connection on the spiritual level. I think the most important thing to understand is that we all come from the same consciousness, and we all we all are love, basically. And when you are vibrating at a different frequency, then you're not quite on the same level of consciousness anymore. Like, I'm not sure if that makes sense, but it's kind of like if you were to tune a radio and you have that frequency and you're trying to turn the dial, right? And you're turning it ever so slightly, and then you hear that little blip, and then you turn it again, and then it goes away, right? So we are all our own consciousness, and we all come from that one radio frequency, but because we all have our egos and things that make us human, we all fall out of that frequency. And even though we can return to that frequency, it's difficult for us because of what makes us human, the ego and everything. And so on like I guess a cellular level, we do come from that same frequency. It's just that there are a lot of things about being human that make us different, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think what you were talking about earlier about why we exist here, to go through these experiences that we need to go through. Another thing that you said, and this is something that I've been talking about with a lot of other guests, is that we are love. And this was something that helped me so much in the beginning. I mean, the devastation of losing a child is beyond anything you can say or describe. But my son was love. He was a big love. And so I really honed in on that love and that he was back in the arms of love, really. And it started that journey for me that led to having a spiritually transformative experience. You talked about the dark night of the soul. Mine was a different thing. I mean, it was almost a decade of in and out of it, but one day I woke and then I woke. I was just filled from head to toe with a knowing that every sign and every message had been deliberately sent by Levi, and that we were still connected, we were still in relationship, he still existed. And it was a joyous thing for me. I was just beaming for weeks about it. And I think when people can understand that and connect to the love, that is our spirit, right? And so I would love to have you walk our listeners through a healing exercise from this space that we were just talking about, being love.
I can definitely do that. So I have a meditation that I would like to share with our listeners. This will help with the internal dialogue because it's a shortened version of a powerful healing meditation that is meant to transmute a negative thought. I do want to preface this Please don't listen to this if you're driving or operating heavy machinery, as you will be going into a meditative state as part of the exercise. Okay, so let's begin by taking a moment to settle your body into a comfortable position. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. A deep breath in and a deep breath out. Make yourself aware of the pace of your breath as you take a deep breath in and out. Slow your breath to a comfortable and calm pace. Notice how your body feels against the chair you're sitting on. Notice every part of your body that's making contact with the chair. Notice how heavy you feel sinking into the chair, deeper and deeper into a state of relaxation. Rest your hands in a comfortable and effortless way. Unclench your jaw, relax your shoulders, loosen all that tension and stress you may be carrying. Those things do not matter in this moment. You drift even more deeply into this deep hypnotic sleep. So comfortable, so relaxing. I'm going to take you on an imaginative journey where you can use the power of your wonderful subconscious mind to help you get rid of the excess mental weight that you have been carrying around for so long. I need you to listen very carefully and allow your subconscious to visualize or become aware of everything I suggest to the very best of your ability. Make the images real. Notice any sounds or smells that accompany your impressions. Now, imagine the space around you to disappear into an empty, white room. This is a safe haven protected by white light and positivity from all directions. Nothing can hurt you here. In fact, this is the very place where you can go to transmute negativity. Your spirit guides and higher self are in this room with you. You may or may not see them right now, but you can definitely feel their presence. They step forward towards you, and their image becomes clearer and clearer. You can feel the positivity and healing energies radiate from where they stand in front of you. They are kind, gentle, and friendly. They greet you with so much love and respect. Notice what they look like and notice any details on their appearance. Your spirit guides and higher self look to you for your signal. They are prepared and ready to go with the transmutation. Now, bring forward the most intense negative thought you have. Do not identify with it. Simply acknowledge that it's there. Draw a bright white circle on the floor in front of you. You see the white circle glows brilliantly, and healing energies radiate from it. When you are ready, remove the negative thought out of your body and place it in the glowing circle in front of you. Observe it in the circle with your mind's eye. What would it feel like in your hands? Would it be heavy? Or maybe it's light? What texture does it have? What does it look like? What color is it? Observe and notice all of the details you can during this process. Now that we've figured out what this negative thought looks and feels like, now we can transmute it. Let's call on our spirit guides and higher self to assist with the transmutation. Allow them to gather around the circle to lend their energy for the process. As they gather around the circle, give permission to allow this negative thought to be transmuted. This negative thought no longer serves you, so it may be transmuted. Lift your hands up towards the circle with your palms facing the circle. Focus on the negative energy flowing downward, being absorbed into Mother Gaia as you, your spirit guides, and higher self beam bright golden light at the thought within the circle. You can feel the negativity dissipating from the circle very quickly as the positive energy beams fill it up. The negativity is being drained more and more. You can feel the positive power flowing freely. The healing energies continue to flow until the negative energy is gone and only positive energy remains. You see the thought in the circle change color and shape until it glows bright white light. The transmutation is a success. You see the circle is overflowing with beautiful, radiant, positive energy. Allow that to absorb back into you by scooping some of the energies in the circle with your hands, and place your hands on your heart center. Feel the positive energy absorb into you, knowing that the negativity that once burdened you is now gone, and you are filled with magic, light, and pure love energy. You feel a deep sense of peacefulness, calmness, and happiness. In a moment, I'm going to count down from 5 to 1, and on 1, you will come back to full conscious awareness. You may thank your spirit guides and higher self as you begin to return back to your reality. When you return back to your reality, you will feel re-energized and alert, ready to take on and emotionally better than you have felt for days, weeks, perhaps even months. 5, your spirit guides and higher self are sending you off, and you feel the room around you start to reappear, slowly coming back to full conscious awareness feeling wonderfully relaxed. Or you can feel yourself returning back to this reality safely and with newfound positivity and energy. Your whole body now becoming alert. 3, your eyes feel like they have been bathed in magical spring water. Your eyes begin to sparkle. 2, slowly returning to reality. And 1, eyes open, now completely back in your reality. So welcome back, beautiful soul. How did that feel? If you feel called to do so, you may journal about your experience, and anytime you feel negative thoughts come in, you can return to this meditation as many times as you need to get them transmuted.
Jacqueline, that was perfect and beautiful. I think too, I might actually separate that out when I post it on my blog so that they can just go straight to it, and the whole episode as well, because it was a beautiful meditation. And I know it was probably very helpful for some people.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
I would love for you to tell listeners how they can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently creating a brand new spiritual coaching program where I will coach a small handful of women to overcome mental blocks and negativity from their past so they can rebuild a healthy, loving connection with themselves. It's an amazing 12-week program, and I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to work with the few lucky women who will be part of the founders cohort. And if you're interested, you can head over to my Instagram page at BeyondMagick. That's at BeyondMagick. And you can send me a DM to let me know. And you can also find more of my content on YouTube and TikTok as well. And I do have a website. It's also beyondmagick.com. And I know not everyone has access to spiritual support. So I've made it my mission to be that spiritual support system for those looking to experience real positive transformations. And I would be honored to be the one to foster a safe and positive environment for you to facilitate healings that lead to radical spiritual empowerment and profound transformations. So thank you so much for your time, and I really hope to be able to work with some of you listeners soon.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. I absolutely enjoyed our discussion. I know we could have talked for probably 2 more hours.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
hopefully in the future you'll come back and share some more with our listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure.
You've been listening to the Spirit Experience podcast, where we discuss spiritual practices for healing and happiness. Join one of our free online events live with me to discuss healing the whole person by connecting with spirit, releasing attachments, creating happiness, and living into your purpose. Links to reach out to myself and my guests are in the show notes. Have a joyful week, and I'll see you next Monday.